for another installment in our ongoing series of conversations with some of the leading artists, activists, and thought leaders in the country. My name is Charles Ward, and I'm the Senior Director of Development for YBCA. First, I'd like to thank our corporate underwriter, KPMG, our sponsors, Michael D. Communications and the St. Regis Hotel. We'd also like to acknowledge and thank the many organizations that provided promotional support for this event. It's too long a list to read from the stage, but all those names do appear on the donor signs at the entrance to the theater. We greatly appreciate your effort on our behalf, and we value our partnership with you in this endeavor. We hope that there are new opportunities for us to participate with each other in the future. In that same vein, if there are any of you as individuals, as families, or as influencers within the companies that you work for who may be interested in learning more about sponsorship of this or other YBCA programs and events, please see me after this evening's conversation or call my office here. I'm easy to reach for some things. I would also like to remind you that in addition to these conversations, YBCA is a presenter of an array of programs that include performance, visual arts, and film. The current exhibitions in the gallery buildings next door include the work of British artist David Shrigley, whose work infuses a comedic sensibility into a serious fine art practice. Closer to home, the upstairs gallery is currently hosting an exhibition titled Occupy Bay Area. Since the Occupy movement took hold across the country in the fall of 2011, protesters in Oakland and San Francisco have produced a substantial output of art and writing in support of the principles of economic fairness, equality, and reform. One of the legacies of the culture of activism in the Bay Area is this rich tradition of creating imagery in support of political and social issues. To connect to earlier movements and provide a historical context for the project, the exhibition includes posters from other political movements, including the Black Panther Party, the ARC-AIDS Vigil, the occupation of Alcatraz, and the San Francisco state protests to gain an ethnic studies program. We're hosting a launch party this evening for a new member immersion program, YBCAU, and you're all invited to join after the conversation. The galleries will be open until midnight. We also have an exciting performance schedule for the fall. On October 19th and 20th, we are hosting the Voices of Strength, an all-women's group that celebrates the stylistic diversity of contemporary performance across the African continent, confronting personal obstacles, addressing political and social issues, and painting true and vivid pictures of the lives of contemporary African women. On November 17th, as a part of our New Frequencies Festival, we'll be presenting a lively celebration of Afro-Cuban folklore and creative jazz improvisation, featuring the inimitable sounds of Daphnis Prieto and the Proverb Trio. And then on November 30th and December 1st, we will pair an up-and-coming violin virtuoso with 5 hip-hop dance acts on the same stage. We call it classic hip-hop. A 2-night mini-festival featuring YouTube sensations Les Twins from Paris, legendary hip-hop pioneer Rennie Harris, and virtuoso violinist Daniel Bernard Romain in a mashup of music and movement you won't want to miss. I'd like to remind you that we are a nonprofit membership organization, and we'd like to take this opportunity to solicit your support by becoming members. Finally, I'd like to announce that our next forum conversation will take place on January 28th, and our guest will be playwright and actor Anna Deavere Smith. Our guest interviewer for this evening's program is an author, blogger, a member of the Political Commentariat, and currently holds the position of Distinguished Writer in Residence at the Arthur L. Carter Journalism Institute at New York University. Please welcome Farai Chideya. Judith Jamison joined Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre in 1965 and quickly became an international star. Over the next 15 years, Mr. Ailey created some of his most enduring roles for her, most notably the tour de force solo, Cry. During the 1970s and 80s, she appeared as a guest artist with ballet companies all over the world, starred in the hit Broadway musical Sophisticated Ladies, and formed her own company, the Jamison Project. She returned to Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre in 1989 when Mr. Ailey asked her to succeed him as artistic director. In the 21 years that followed, she brought the company to unprecedented heights. Ms. Jamison is the recipient of numerous awards and honors, among them a Primetime Emmy Award, an American Choreography Award, the Kennedy Center Honor, a National Medal of Arts, a Bessie Award, the Phoenix Award, and the Handel Medallion. She was also listed in the Time 100, the world's most influential people, and honored by First Lady Michelle Obama at the first White House Dance Series event. Ms. Jamison's autobiography, Dancing Spirit, was edited by Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis and published in 1983. In 2004, under Ms. Jamison's artistic directorship, the permanent home for the Alvin Ailey Company was realized in the form of a beautiful building on Manhattan's West Side. Ms. Jamison continues to dedicate herself to asserting the prominence of the arts in our culture, and she remains committed to promoting the significance of the Ailey legacy, using dance as a medium for honoring the past, celebrating the present, and fearlessly reaching into the future. Please join me in welcoming Judith Jamison.
How are you? Thank you. Good to see you again.
Oh, you are.
Hey. Thank you. Thank you. That was a step from Cry.
Yes.
That's all y'all gonna get. That's it. That's it. The wave.
Yep. You know what? The power you have in one gesture, most people will never have in all their lifetime of dancing. So you're like, And so look, I want to start at your childhood because you sound like someone who was so immersed in arts from the start. Just reading about your family and your father teaching you to play musical instruments, I believe piano and violin, and starting dance lessons so early. What did you understand about the arts as a child? Was it just fun? Was it something that was serious? Was it, what role did that play in your life?
Well, the first place I learned about the arts was at Mother Bethel AME Church.
Ah.
Nashame Wilkie Lindo is out here.
Yes.
Where are you?
Yes, right there.
Where are you? There you are. And we went to the same church, and it was Mother Bethel AME. And the pageantry of every choir, every color that was there, every minister that was there, that I didn't register it as art as a child, but it was magnificent pageantry and a source of understanding what faith was, and absorbing that by watching people get the Holy Ghost, being scared of that, but watching the actual, it was a performance, but it was in the sanctuary, and it was real. It was real. It was real in my heart, It was real in the tears of my mother, in the singing of my father, who also sang with Nashame's dad, Mr. Wilkie. They sang in a quartet in the church. There are just things that are embedded in you. Alvin used to call them blood memories, you know, that when you're a kid, you don't know, you know. And Demiri's here too. Where's Demiri? That's her son, Demiri.
Yep,
anyway,
right there.
So, you know, I got to remember my folks here. So, but you absorb all this as a child. And so that was my art. And I grew up in Philadelphia, so we had the Philadelphia Art Museum. And when music was in the schools, we had violins and instruments. My brother played the clarinet, from clarinet that was given to him from the school system. And also I played the violin. And my dad, of course, taught me how to play the piano from when I was like 8. So I took my first lesson at 12, and I already knew how to play things with strange fingering, but I knew how to play. And I also understood the beauty of how to carry yourself. There was nothing but queens in my household. You know, if my mother could see me sitting this way, my mother can't see me sitting this way. Let me sit up a little straight. Oh, because there was a ruler in her back. She was a queen, and my father was the king of the household, and they carried themselves in certain ways. And my ballet teacher, Marion Sujet, that was my first ballet teacher when I was 6 years old. Mother knew, Dad knew, mother mostly, I guess, that I was going to be a gangly kid because I had very long legs and long arms. And I also wore corrective shoes because I must have been pigeon-toed and bow-legged, knock-kneed, everything you could think of. But look at me now, I mean, you know. So I took my first ballet lessons at the age of 6 from a very powerful black woman who happened to look white. She had red hair and white skin, green eyes. And she opened more studios downtown Philadelphia. She was the first black woman to open a studio space for black children downtown Philadelphia. Marion Sujet, you all should remember that name. So those were my influences, the Rodin Museum, but basically it was the church,
Right.
you know, and looking at people, you know, react to words of wisdom being spoken from a pulpit. And then, as I say, having every choir, black churches have more choirs than you can think of. Now I am a member of Abyssinian Baptist Church, Reverend Dr. Calvin O'Butts III. Some of y'all might know that church.
Yep.
Adam Clayton Powell's church. Yes. Okay. So, and I have to tell this story, even though I digress.
Oh, I love it.
Because I think I told you earlier that I was baptized there. Because when you, any other church, you know, you get the sprinkle. But if you're Baptist, you got to get dunked. You're just completely submerged. The person that baptized me at Abyssinian was Reverend Ebony Marshall Turman, who was a member of the first class of Ailey Fordham BFA program. You know, we are the only major dance company that has a 4-year Bachelor of Fine Arts degree program with Fordham University. I digress, but I'm real proud of it.
No, that's not a digression. That's legacy.
But think of that. She got her calling. It wasn't dance, but it was excellence. And it was excellence to the calling of God.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
You know, I mean, when I hear you talk about your family, your church, Miss Sujet, your teacher, your roots run so deep. And I'm interested in that moment where you went away to college at Fisk University.
That was a rude awakening.
Yeah, and then you came back to Philadelphia for your dance studies, but who were you then as a teenager, traveling to college, having done years of dance, and why did you return?
Well, as number one, as a teacher, because I started teaching ballet when I was 14.
Really?
Because in the school system that Marion set up, you taught the children beneath you. You know, there was always the responsibility of making sure to look there and help. And I was a real taskmaster. I was an evil teacher. I really was. But that was that discipline thing. But if you could imagine a young woman growing up in Philadelphia and then all of a sudden being in the South of the 60s, in Nashville, Tennessee, oh my goodness, I had no idea. I mean, I'd seen things on television, but I had no idea. I'd never seen whites only, you know, signs and stuff like that. Are you kidding? Is this serious? And the Fisk campus was a real haven, you know. I mean, you didn't have to go off of it if you didn't want to, but there were several people that did go off campus and did go and do sit-ins and et cetera, et cetera. But that was a real, it was an awakening of almost the equivalent of the first time I went to the continent, to Africa. You know, for the first time I went there, there was like a reawakening of going like, oh yeah, my people, you know? And when there I was at Fisk and the Jubilee singers were there, and there was a marvelous singer named Stinny. I know he was from Troy, New York. God bless you, I don't know where you are, but he was an amazing singer. And I used to dance at half times. Yeah, I know, and that's something. I used to put my point shoes on and dance at halftime.
Really?
At basketball games.
Oh my goodness. People, I'm sure people just were like, what?
Less, and they looked, but they could have cared less. But there was a little dance club, and we used to do our little routines, and then I'd put my, you know, be up there on my toes. But that was that experience, and I'm glad I had that because I met marvelous brothers and sisters down there who happened to be at that time, I don't know if it's still the same, rich. People were very well, Fisk was the wealthy United Negro College Fund. Yes, you remember this? Yes, okay. So, and I didn't have no money, scholarship, you know, the whole thing. But then I realized when I was down there, I said, I've been dancing all my life. Now, this isn't quite the fit that I want here. So I transferred to the Philadelphia Dance Academy, which is now the University of the Arts in Philadelphia. And if it hadn't been for this woman named Agnes DeMille, I wouldn't have gotten to New York as a guest artist with ballet theater in a ballet called The Four Marys with one of my icons, Miss Carmen de Lavalade. And Carmen de Lavalade, by the way, is 81 years old, and she just got off of Broadway doing A Streetcar Named Desire. Amazing. You know, so point being, you have these, you know, people sometimes say, well, what guided you, what led you? Part of that is visual. When you have people that carry themselves in ways, in distinguished ways, just they don't have to say anything to you, it's their demeanor, how they carry themselves through life. That's an example right there.
And your dance career in New York led you to getting a call by Alvin Ailey.
It led me to the log flume ride yeah, see, look at you don't know this. Ballet theater didn't have any black dancers in ballet theater at the time. They have very few black dancers in ballet theater now. But at that time, we came into this specific ballet called the Four Marys. The Four Marys were 4 African servants, and the master fell in love with one of them, and that just disrupted the mistress and caused all kinds of the Four Marys. Okay, so we did that ballet. I got on a plane for the first time and flew to Chicago. It was a Pan Am Clipper. It was four propellers, okay? And first place I danced on tour, and this was 1964, was the end of 64, was actually at the Opera House in Chicago. So that was the beginning of that, and I ended up with no job after that because the ballet was in there only as a special moment. So the pianist for ballet theater, who's a marvelous woman named Martha Johnson, recommended that her daughters were working at the World's Fair. 64, 65, right? So in 65, I worked at the World's Fair pushing buttons at the log flume ride at the Texas Pavilion, helping people in and out of boats. Stay grounded. Stay grounded. Never forget where you came from. You know, I got a lot of flashback moments, you know what I'm saying? So, point being, that whole summer, 3 months, I didn't dance. I was working, I didn't take class. Then there was an audition coming up that she mentioned. Donald McHale, the great Donald McHale, had an audition. Paula Kelly was demonstrating this incredible Roaring 20 specials for Harry Belafonte. I was miserable. I was terrible, really bad. I've had one audition in my life. That's the audition I failed, right? Okay, so I went running out, ran out, crossed the street, called my mother on the phone in Philadelphia, said, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I have to stay in New York. I didn't realize when I ran up those steps, there was a man sitting on the steps. That was the man that called me 2 days later. That was Alvin Ailey. That's how I got in the company.
So what did you think of him when you first met him?
Big man, big man. I mean, I had seen him in 1983, not 83, 63, dancing in Philadelphia with the company. I had gone backstage. Our whole class had gone backstage from the Philadelphia Dance Academy. And I saw him, and by that time he was bigger than he was kind of heavy set by then. He used to be spelter, but he was always a big barrel-chested man, you know, really. Nobody expected him to move like a cat, you know. And handsome, oh my goodness, the man could stop traffic. And he did, he did. But I saw him then, but didn't really meet him. But I was so impressed with dancers like Minnie Marshall and James Truitt and Thelma Hill, and I mean, it just so many dancers that maybe you don't know about that just were perfection to see and absorb. And our class, our improvisation class the next day, everybody was doing this from Revelations. We didn't invent anything. So when I really met him, I walked into the rehearsal. There was James Truitt, the indomitable Jimmy Truitt, who was my first partner because I did Fix Me Jesus with him. And I came in like, oh my goodness, I'm surrounded by all these fabulous people. Isn't this? And he said, basically, girls, shut up and go over there and learn the steps. You know, and it was said very nicely. You know, it wasn't like, you know, go away or anything. It was like, we have work to do. Yeah. Because I had to learn something like...
Put away your wide eyes.
Yeah, there was nothing to be wide-eyed about was what he was saying, because you're a part of this now, and you've got 2 weeks to learn 8 ballets, so get on it.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah. Was it hard to transition from being in a state of awe and excitement to a state of workmanship?
It wasn't hard until the first performance, which was a piece called Congo Tango Palace by the great Tally Beatty, late Tally Beatty. And I didn't realize that in rehearsal, because we had really worked, we were doing 6 weeks of one-night stands, and you know, it was buses and no planes. You drive everywhere, arrive there, slap something on your face, go out on the stage that might not have, somebody might have waxed it for you, thought that was the right thing to do. Or in Europe, there would be rugs and these Schauspiel houses that we would dance on. There would be canvas on.
My goodness.
I mean, it was tough, but I didn't realize that they were marking. Do you know what marking is? Marking is when you, if there are a couple of pirouettes, you do like this. You don't actually do the pirouettes, you do like this, you indicate, right? And then you take, you know, a couple of steps that way. That was the glissade, that's the jump, that's just that. And for some reason I thought their level of rehearsing, I thought they were doing everything as full. I got out on that stage, and in Congo Tango Palace, the women enter from stage, upstage left and right, backwards. And the music is Miles Davis's Sketches of Spain. And you enter backwards doing the step, 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 and you turn around, and I'll never forget the choreography, and you pull, and that's it. I came out there and all I saw was a blur. These dancers were on fire. There was so much energy going on the stage, and plus the look changed because it was very, very hearty. It was very, Spanish flavored, flamenco flavored. And I turned around and the people that were like smiling in my face the other day were looking at me like, we're like,
Oh.
okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
Yeah.
So that was the lesson learned.
My goodness. So tell me about Alvin Ailey as a man.
Very generous.
Yeah.
Generous to a fault. Very exacting. Very fluid. Handsome as he want to be. Articulate like you just wouldn't believe. We listen to some of his tapes now, of some of the recordings that he made with interviews. Oh, my goodness, the words just flowed out of him like a river. I mean, it was just, he was wonderful to listen to. I mean, we didn't take that for granted even at that time. We listened to every word he was saying. He could be really mean if he wanted to be. I mean, there were sometimes you would go on stage and you were giving your all, and he would come backstage and say, "What was that?" and that you felt about that big for a minute, but there was a reason why he was saying that. He wasn't trying to be mean. He was trying to tell you you could be more excellent.
Yeah.
Than what you thought, or you thought you were so cute, you're not that cute. That kind of thing. And he did that to all of us, not just to one or two. And when I joined the company, there were only 10 people in the company, but generous, brilliant choreographer, and welcomed everyone. He said, I don't care if you're pink or polka dot or whatever, what a chartreuse, anything. If you can dance, you're welcome in my company, And also choreographers. Alvin thought of modern dance repertory. Nobody was doing repertory.
Yeah.
Everybody was saying me, 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 And he was saying, well, I have a stage, I have these dancers, you are welcome to use these dancers. Here's a venue for you, And eventually, and of course now, and for the last 54 years, it's been marvelous to be cultural ambassadors from our country and take all of this repertory around the world. At the moment, the company is at Tivoli in Copenhagen.
Ah.
And before that, they were in Barcelona at the Liceo, which I danced at years ago. But there's the new Liceo because the old one burned down. And then before that, I forget where they were. And then after that, they're on their way to Israel. So it's under the direction of Mr. Battle, Robert Battle, the person that I chose to take over for me. We're just stepping it up another step, just getting to higher ground. And
Yeah.
that's what Alvin always wanted us to do.
Yeah. I want to circle back a little bit later to the trip that you took in the 60s to Africa with
Yes.
the Alvin Ailey Dance Theater. But let me ask you about the leadership role that you took on at Alvin Ailey, returning after pursuing your own choreography to Alvin Ailey a year and some months before he passed away. And then just 21 years of leadership, and now your emerita role. Did you ever envision that this would become your life's work? When you were an early years dancer with Alvin Ailey?
No, well, first of all, I never thought of dance as a life's work. In other words, as a job or a career. I never thought of, my head wouldn't wrap around that. Even with the first check, my head still wouldn't wrap around there. So, no, and there's a prophetic photograph that used to be in the school, largest dedicated dance building in New York City, 77,000 square feet, We built it.
Yeah.
We built it, we own it, and we have an endowment for it.
Oh.
I have to throw that in there.
Well, yeah, that's you. That's you.
No, that's also this lady that we named it after, the Joan Wall Center for Dance, and
Yeah.
she's been quite an amazing chairwoman. But let me get back to, now we're all over the
You were
place.
just saying that there was a photo.
Oh yeah, there's a
Prophetic
photo,
photo.
very prophetic photo that used to be when you came into the building that was in the center. Now it's just Alvin himself there and looking gorgeous. But it was a picture of an old black and white Jack Mitchell picture of Alvin looking straight forward and me looking profile off into the distance. How prophetic is that? It was taken in 1968 or something like that. Who knew? I didn't know. I never know what, I look back on this and I go, I didn't have a thing to do with this. All I did was try to be there, to be present, and to carry what I knew, and it's a learning process, constant learning process, what I knew of what it was like to be on the other side as a dancer into what it's like to be on the side of director, And when Alvin told me, Alvin died of an age-related illness.
Yeah.
And when Alvin told me in April of '89, when I was on tour with him, in St. Louis, Missouri, he took me to lunch, and I knew what he was going to tell me. I already knew he was ill. And when he did tell me, and he said, I'd like you to take over the company, of course I went, yeah, sure. And I had the Jamison project at the same time. But there was no question that there was something bigger. I mean, that's why we're still here. There's something bigger. There's something more to be said about the connection between that African trip that I took and our existence today. Between the trips that we have taken around the world. I've been around the world 4 times. I know there are people that have been around the world maybe more than that, but I danced.
Yeah, you danced your way around the world. That's a lot of energy.
I mean, come on, that's an amazing gift, and he facilitated that. And also, I have to mention a man that nobody knows. His name is Paul Villard. And is Paula Smew in here? Oh, there she is. That's a good friend of mine back there. She knows who Paul Villard is. He's the last of the impresarios, and he's a Hungarian man. He supported Alvin 35 years. He was representing our company, taking us on our first round the world trip. I mean, this man is amazing. He also just came back from Paris recently, and last week we celebrated his 100th birthday.
Oh, that is fabulous. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Alvin, people radiated to him, they just came to him because of the goodness of that soul, the largeness of his humanity, of his understanding people. So that when we took that trip to Africa the first time, it was actually in 1966. And we went for the first Negro World Arts Festival. Oh. President Senghor was president of Dakar, of Senegal back then. And this was a conflagration of, Duke Ellington was there, Catherine Dunham was there, dancers from all over the diaspora were there. You can look at each other. William Greaves, the filmmaker, anybody? No? Yes, William Greaves made a film of it. If you look it up, you might be able to find it online. Not the film itself, but his work. Mm-hmm. And Langston Hughes was there.
Oh man!
I mean, it was amazing group of people, and there we were. And I remember being a little upset because the hotel, so American, didn't have air conditioning. I mean, and you could, at one point, we're waiting on the plane, and there's a film. I got a Band-Aid on my knee. I'm just looking. Oh goodness, I cannot tell you. But what an experience that was. First of all, to get off a plane and smell, sense, taste, see something completely different than those movies I've been watching all my life.
Yes, yes. The ones with the little crazy,
oh my goodness,
folks running around the jungle.
But then I also had a wild imagination. I mean, when the first place I ever flew in my life on a world tour was Dusseldorf, and I thought all the Germans were going to have like pigtails, and, carrying beer around with them and wearing dirndls, and so I have a great fantasy. But when I found out about my own culture, about my roots, that was quite a revelation, to say the least. Then it was '67 that we did the 10 countries in 2.5 months.
Yeah.
State Department ran us ragged, but I'll never forget it.
Yeah, yeah. Just listening to you talk, one thing that stood out among so many of the gems that you've already presented us with tonight is this idea of staying present. Tell us a little bit more about that. What does it mean to you to stay present to the opportunities in your life, to the opportunities in the arts, to the opportunities of spirit?
Right. Well, this is an opportunity right now.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity. I'm not thinking about, at this very moment, the plane I have to catch.
We are.
I'm not. I'm thinking about being here.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about what a wonderful thing it is to live to be 69, to walk down the street, or to be upstairs in the receiving room and have people say nothing but great things about you.
Yeah.
I mean, why not be present? And you really, if you think about it, even if people don't say nice things to you, if you're in that very moment that you're in, then you're appreciating why you've been put on this earth. You're appreciating, being, living and breathing. We don't appreciate that all the time, and when we're so busy living life, than being busy, So I've had time now to really contemplate all of this life that has gone before, and to go like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I mean by being present. It's hard. I have to work at it.
Yeah.
It's not easy. But it's like something good you tasted, the other day, and you still got that taste in your mouth. It's still good. But it's like this whole life is like it's like a meal, a full meal. Only we're only getting pieces of it at a time. You know what I mean? A little taste here, a little taste there.
Yeah.
Sometimes a great big taste.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all have to really savor, the time that we have, and enjoy it and be excellent.
Yeah. Speaking of excellence, I want to ask you about 3 works, 2 that you have danced and 1 that you choreographed. Revelations, Cry, and Hymn.
Okay, Revelations is a masterpiece. You go on stage, you do it, it's normal to go on stage. And for instance, I did Fix Me Jesus the first time I did Revelations, and then Alvin gave me a prop. I was evil. I was really evil. I was very mad at him, because I went from this gorgeous duet, which I don't know if you know, to carrying a prop. And I was too through with him with that. Of course, I didn't say anything to him, but I was like, and you can't go on stage like that. So nobody had ever done Revelations, the umbrella coming out like that. Nobody. But I came out like that because I felt just the opposite. I was so mad I didn't know what to do, so I went like, dun, 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 dun. And I had to smile for the next 7 years. I had to keep smiling. But Revelations embraces you. That's the idea. It's a complete embrace. So even if you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you do that piece and you are transported. You think the audience is transported. We are transported every time we do it.
Yeah.
And it's probably the most famous and the most done modern work ever in the history of dance. Cry. Did I know it was dedicated to all black women, especially our mothers, when I did it? No, he didn't tell me all that. He choreographed it. He choreographed it in about 8 days. The last section was done at the last minute because he couldn't find the Alice Coltrane music, something about John Coltrane, right? He couldn't find that. So that first part with the cloth, which is the most difficult part of the piece, other than the stamina for the end and the drama in the middle, at that piece.
Other than basically you being, I mean, it's just
draining. It's very
isn't it
draining.
17 minutes or something like that?
It's getting longer every year. It's actually, it was 15 minutes when I was doing it, and then the next thing I turned around and I was teaching it to other people, and I looked at the program and said it was 16 minutes.
Yeah.
I said, oh, okay, fine.
But just
whoever
the solo piece, that energy.
Whoever has done it they have thought that they cannot get through it, because I would train them only to do the first section, and they'd get on stage and only do the first section. Another woman would do the second section, another would do the third section. All three of them would then join each other. So we did it that way for years. But the first time they would rehearse the very first section, people would fall on the floor and stuff, you know, or the last section, the Ride On, Be Free section, fall on the floor like, I can't do this. That kind of thing. So it's very interesting watching it, passing it on, because we always pass these dances along. Very interesting passing it along with the weight of the world on their shoulders, because they did know what it was about, you know. Very much explanation coming after the fact when Mr. Ailey was gone. Yeah. For me, he said a couple of words, you know. For me, he put a cloth in my hand. Feel like you're carrying the weight of the world here. This is a child. This is a ironing board. This is a, you know, every way you can imagine using a cloth. You know, this is a crown on your head. This is a shawl. You know, you're hanging yourself. You're tied behind your back. I mean, he was so inventive, so creative, so masterful. So that probably was one of the hardest dances I've ever had to do, besides Masakelo Langage, which was another brilliant work by Mr. Ailey. And then, what do we have? One, two.
Him.
Oh, him. Oh, him. And you're going to have Anna DeVere.
Yes.
Anna DeVere Smith is coming here soon, right?
Yes.
Now, this is the woman that did Fires in the Mirror, the one-woman show. Anybody know this here?
Yes.
Fires in the Mirror. What's the other one?
Twilight.
Twilight. And she did the other one about death, remember?
Yeah.
It's a new one that she did. So I saw her do the Crown Heights one. I guess that's what, and Fires in the Mirror. And I saw her do it, and I went to her afterwards and said, would you please think about, would you like to work with Ailey? Maybe we can think of something. She went, boom, like that. And she interviewed all the dancers. I asked her to ask them specific questions, and she came up with more questions. But the question was, what were they still doing there? Alvin had died in 1989. This ballet I did in 2000. When did I do this? 1993. 1993 I did him. And so I didn't understand. What were they doing there? What was the point of you still being here? You didn't even know the man. Why are you still with this company? Well, came up with some answers you wouldn't believe. And she imitated, you know how she does these voices and changes into these characters? She did about 13 dancers and turned into this wonderful ballet that Annie Leibovitz shot for the poster. You know, I got more and more letters about that poster, because the dancers are like in briefs, you know, they have these briefs that are cut very, very high, and dancers have in Ailey are gorgeous, beautiful bodies. And they're standing near each other. It's a gorgeous photo. People were stealing them off walls, doing all kinds of things. And then I was getting letters from folks saying, go back to church. What are you doing? I mean, really, I'm telling you, I got
my
some
goodness.
letters. But that shot, the photograph was done by Annie Leibovitz. She did a big favor for us by really giving this to us as a gift. But she shot that last pose, and I used that as the last pose of this ballet. And if you've seen it, I'm not sure if you've seen it,
Yeah.
there's also a stool down in the, a Revelation stool down in the corner. And I thought of that the day of the premiere. I thought to put that stool down there as the absence, oh gosh, I just thought of Clint Eastwood, as the absence of Alvin, Ailey. The true absence of a presence
Yeah.
and not an invisible man.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. You crack me up. Well, those moments of synchronicity, you know, like deciding to, we're getting ready to go to questions. So.
Is that what that means?
Yeah, that's just.
I thought that was somebody's very hot cell phone.
Yeah, no. That's something that should get everybody here excited.
Oh,
But you know, I just love that sense that you have, and I think it goes once again to you being present to say at the last minute I will add this stool to that powerful dance.
Yeah, and I had a wonderful lighting designer, Tim Hunter, and the entire company. The first and the last time I ever worked with 30 people at the same time.
Wow.
Because you have to remember that each dancer is an individual personality. And it was marvelous that there was a naivete. There's always been a naivete about how I approach things, otherwise I wouldn't approach them. And I approached this completely in the, you know, kind of like realm of, okay, you go over there, and Anna, can you walk down this way? And then 5 minutes later, Anna would say, now which way do you want me to walk? And I go, I look at Chaya,
Yeah.
Mazazumi Chaya, who's my associate artistic director. He still is.
Yeah.
40 years with the company.
That's amazing.
From Fukuoka, Japan.
Yeah.
40 years with the company, okay. But he would remember what I just said.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember. He'd remember what I just said, so.
It's good to have backup.
Yes, and
Well, this is fabulous. We have some microphones that are out in the audience. Raise your hand if you have a question for. So we've got one over here. I don't know if there's, and yeah.
Thank you
Raise
so
your hand. Okay, you got it.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I have your picture in my bathroom. I was telling my mother, and I look at you every day, so it's great to see you in the flesh. On the mirror. I want to be like you. So I have this question because it drives me crazy when I read the reviews of the company in the newspapers, and they
I don't read them, so.
and they chide the company for doing the same works, and to me it seems like legacy, and I just wonder, how do you, I asked Mr. Battle about it, but
yeah.
how do you react to
I react to
this?
that by saying, have you ever heard of Swan Lake?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, Swan Lake isn't done every day, but how old is it? And I love it when it's well done, you know, so I love good dance. I love brilliant dance. And if you have a masterpiece in your own backyard, don't trash it.
All right.
First, I'd like to say thank you so much for all the years you've given us as a performer and now as an administrator and sort of a leader of a world-class dance company. So how have you managed to sort of balance sort of the left brain, right brain in terms of the transition to having been a brilliant dancer and now having taken the company to another level in terms of having established a permanent home and endowment for the company?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's been sort of the secret of your, the secret sauce in terms of making that transition and balancing the two?
I just get along well with the people that I work with, because we're all on the same boat, you know. At the time that the building was coming along and we were achieving the things that we were achieving, I happened to be at the helm you know, and I don't know the left brain and the right brain thing. It's kind of, you know, it's just all there, you know. And when it needs to work, it works. And I'm always surrounded by loving people. That's just a blessing to be surrounded by people who care about you and that we're all on the same journey. And our journey happened to be the Alvin Ailey journey, you know, and there's just no digressing from it. It's so powerful, you know, and it's so spirit driven that it's undeniable, you know, and what a legacy this man has left us that that everybody wants to join the bandwagon. I mean, that's why when I asked Robert, would you be interested in, you know, running this company, he almost dropped out the seat. You know, his face, and Robert he doesn't really have all these expressions he does. He's really good at, you know, at that. Delightful man, you would love him. Yeah, this is powerful, this is potent stuff. This is the good elixir, you know, and never needs to be diluted.
All right, we have a question at the front. I'm sure there's others too. But...
Where are we going?
Yep.
Here's a dear friend.
Mm-hmm.
Judith,
Hold the mic close.
Judith, could you explain to the audience, because most of the audience may not know this, about the Ailey camps?
Yes, can you tell the audience your name?
I'm Sylvia Lindsay
And
from the Cal Performance Board.
somebody knows Sylvia, please. Yes, that's part of Alvin's legacy, children. It's always been part of Alvin's legacy from the beginning, reaching out, making sure that that children are embraced in understanding how creative they are, how they can be contributors to their lives and to the rest of the world, how nothing should be in their way to stifle that creativity, so that now that we have 10 Ailey camps across these United States. Of course, where are we, in Berkeley? We're in Oakland?
Yes, we have in
Berkeley. In Berkeley, we have, it's been gone now for what?
This is our 11th.
11th year, 10th anniversary last year. But if you can imagine, these camps were started, I believe they were started in 84 or 86 in Kansas City, Missouri. Because Alvin loved his music, and he loved some Kansas City. And he loved that he wanted to be able to help these young people understand how beautiful they are, how creative they are. And what comes out of these camps is unbelievable. These children that are just, you know, people talk to them and then they're interviewed, and some of them want to be in the camp and some of them don't want to come at all. By the time those 8 weeks or those 6 weeks are over, they don't want to leave. They want to come back because their lives have been enriched by their own endeavor. When they realize that they created this painting that they did, or they made that musical instrument, or they wrote those feelings down in a poem or in prose, you know, and they said what was coming from the heart. And you know that young people don't hold anything back. They just say it, you know, and it might be shocking to us sometimes, but they are telling their truth the way they see it with young eyes, which can then open our old eyes sometimes, you know. The Ailey camps, at one point I wanted them to be and I still do. And what I'm saying at one point, I need them all over the country. And I'd love to have them all over the world, but all over the country, because I could see us having a jamboree, you know, and bringing everybody back together again. The Ailey campers do come back, and the older ones revisit and help the younger ones as they come in. So it's an absolute work of brilliance that Mr. Ailey thought of, that inclusiveness of the communities in each city that we work in, because each city is different.
Yeah.
Each Ailey camp is different, but we have them.
Yeah, it's quite beautiful. Okay, there's a question.
How we doing?
Yep.
We doing?
We're
I'm being present,
No,
but I still
yes,
got
I-
a plane to catch.
Yes. This, you know, goddess has to catch a plane, so we are mindful of time, but
This is my big U-turn. I came in about 5 hours ago.
oh my goodness.
And I'm catching
we are
you
so
know, the
thankful.
red eye. For you, and Nashime was the first one that even mentioned this to me in the first place last
right.
year. So,
And
all
we are
credit.
grateful to Nashime for manifesting this.
Hi, how you doing? My name
Good.
is David Allen. I was able to meet Dizzy Gillespie before he passed away.
I can barely
Yeah,
understand
can
what
you hold the
I'm
mic
sorry. Yeah.
closer?
You were what?
I was able to meet Dizzy Gillespie before he passed away.
Brilliant man.
Back in 1993, about 1986, I met him. And he mentioned to me that all the arts were connected.
That's,
You know, architecture, music, dance, everything was all connected. I really didn't understand that until like 10 years later. But he started giving me definitions of harmony and things like that. What is the relationship between dance and architecture in relationship to harmony? How would you describe
you
that?
really want me to answer that question?
That sounds like a graduate school seminar.
Architecture, music, and dance.
Well, let's just keep it to architecture and just music.
Wait, hold it. Architecture and
I'm sorry, architecture and dance.
architecture and
Yes,
dance. Well, structure, of course.
Okay.
You know, structure.
Okay.
But music is the same way. You got structure. You have, you know, beautiful architecture, I guess, is in the eye of the beholder, but the beautiful architecture is what takes my eye and takes me on a journey when I see it. But it has a structure, right? We have our technique when we dance, and with our music, there is structure. We have techniques when we dance. So those are the connective tissues. But what's interesting about Mr. Gillespie is he used to pass by a stage door of City Center because he lived in the neighborhood, and I would say hello to him. And he thought he was hiding, because you know how he used to wear the cap like that, and so he thought he was hiding. And he knew me and I knew him, but I had the privilege and honor of having Billy Wilson choreograph The Winter in Lisbon, which was in the repertory of the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theatre. And even this year, we're using his music again. The winter, Night in Tunisia, right?
Yeah.
Art Blakey,
Wonderful.
Art Blakey,
Art, yeah.
his version, right?
His version,
okay.
Art Blakey's version.
Done
Okay,
by a
good.
young choreographer that Mr. Battle found, you know. So.
Oh, this is great.
Yeah,
Great to hear
but
this.
and then I was just with Winton because Bobby McFerrin sang
Oh,
with
that's
Jazz at
right.
Lincoln Center. Yeah, I went to
Last week?
rehearsal.
Yes, last week.
Yeah,
Okay.
and talk about structure, you know, and how it can stand up to anything. When's the last time? I mean, some of y'all heard Bobby McFerrin. All you know is be happy and go lucky and all that. Bob McFerrin is a stone musician. He is incredible. And to hear the structure of Winton on his horn and Bobby, they did a back and forth. Oh, incredible. And in the beautiful architecture of Jazz at Lincoln Center.
Well, I'm afraid this is going to have to be our last question. So whoever gets the mic first.
It's going back there.
Let's go, okay.
Sorry.
Hi. I have a quick question. So I know you've worked with Camille Brown and also Alonzo King, who's located here in the Bay Area.
And with who?
Alonzo King.
Oh, that's my brother.
How do you go about picking choreographers?
Picking choreographers, I go about picking them if for instance, it's all different. Alonso, we met at some luncheon or something. I actually had never seen his work, but I can fake a lot when I'm meeting choreographers. You know, if they come with good reputations. And he was just so genuine and so warm and so just right there, present, you know? And we talked to each other, and I said, oh, I can't. Would you do a piece for us? Mind you, I hadn't seen a thing. Would you do it? It's just by word of mouth that this man was incredible. So that's how he got into the repertory. Now that's kind of really off the wall of how to get a choreographer to come, but I ended up with either 3 or 2 pieces by him. Someone like Rennie, my homeboy, Rennie Harris, I got blown away when I went to see one of his performances in Philadelphia on Tango, and I went like, what? Are you out of your mind? This is amazing. And you remember Roman Jules, right? Okay, so all that put together, I kind of went like, this is going to, number one, be brilliant for the company. It's going to challenge the dancers. That's the most important thing, is to challenge the dancers to move in ways they haven't moved before. Yes? To excite them, to make them feel free in what they can do, what their bodies can accomplish, mind over matter, blah, 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 what their spirits, what they can lovingly do. So that's one way of choosing a choreographer, and the other way is the other. Please support Alonso. He's wonderful.
Yes. Well, this is going to wrap up our conversation. I just want us to give the most stirring applause for this goddess. This goddess, Judith Jamison.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this evening, and thank you to Charles Ward, who once again has brought us together. And thank you again, Judith Jamison.
Bye-bye.